This lesson that we listened to today from Samuel, 1 Samuel, is a favorite of mine because when I was a little girl, my dad doesn't remember this, but there's about, I don't know how many Bible stories he read to me. And in my mind, he didn't read them all. Sometimes he just told them, because I feel like this one he told me in the dark when we were laying in bed, and I can hear his voice saying, Samuel, as he told this story, and I laid as a little girl thinking about God calling out to you. And I thought of it recently because some of you know I got to spend 19 days with my mom and dad after I got a new knee, which is very nice of them. And on one of those first days, I had a bad dream. Like, do you ever have those dreams when like you need to be yelling something out and you can't like quite figure out how to make enough of a voice so that was happening to me, and what I was trying to say was, who is there? Like in a really intense way, so people were scared because in my dream there was somebody who wasn't supposed to be there. I don't remember where I was supposed to be, but anyway, my mom came running. She's like, what happened? I was trying to explain to her. She's like, I think all the doors are locked. I'm like, no, it's fine. Just go back to bed. And if you hear something else, say, yes, Lord, your servant is listening. There's a story in Barbara Brown Taylor's book, Learning to Walk in the Dark, which we read a few years ago as part of the people who read around here, called Learning to Walk in the Dark. And there's a couple that's laying in bed, and one of the people in that couple is having one of those nights where you don't sleep, the dark nights of the soul, some theologians have called it. And so he's tossing and turning, and it says, one night his wife tried to get him to get some of the covers back, yanking at them and telling him to go back to sleep. And he said, I can't. I think it's God that's bothering me. And she said, well, God isn't bothering me, so why don't you get up and go pray about it so I can get some sleep. Here at the end of this summer that you and I have both been sort of separately exploring the Artist's Way, we come to the 12th lesson in the Artist's Way on recovering a sense of faith, which comes as a reminder that creativity and a sense of purpose, any kind of enlightenment, always begins in the dark. It is the way of creation. It all began this way. This is the way from darkness to light. We dream in the darkness, and some of those dreams are God's dreams for us, and they can grow there in the dark like a seed buried in the ground. During this time of sabbatical, I was away, in case you don't know, I was away for about 4 months, 3 months of sabbatical and 1 month of laying around with my leg elevated as I try to recover from surgery. And a lot of PT, don't worry. That's the first thing everyone says to me. You're doing your PT, right? And during that time, I was meeting online with a group of colleagues and a spiritual director, the same one that people around here met with, to engage in the material of the Artist's Way. It happens to be Steph's spiritual director, whose name is Danielle Schroyer, and she's written several books. She's really cool. So I met with those folks every Monday, and then some of you also here were meeting every Thursday. And then in a larger way, some of those themes have been brought up in worship throughout the whole summer. The lesson for this final week is to acknowledge the inherently mysterious spiritual heart of creativity and purpose. Finding your purpose and your way of being creative in this world requires profound trust and openness and receptivity. The tools within the Artist's Way are intended to create that, the things that have been talked about here, writing and journaling every day, and taking yourself on artist dates, and walking, really, and playing, is all about just creating space in your life for there to be receptivity to the ongoing creation. But for a while, it all feels, most of the time, fairly meaningless. at least for me. I mean, I wrote in my journal almost every day of sabbatical, at least 3 pages, and so much of it is nothing. So much of it is like, today I need to remember to call Chase Bank again and follow up on that enterprise charge. Today I need to get yogurt and blackberries and almond milk. And then some of it's really fun, like when I started trying to describe everything I could remember about every place that I have lived, and I have lived in far more than 20 places, and so it's kind of a lot. Yeah, I like to move, I don't know. But I felt like it lacked purpose for a long time until it didn't. Until let's see, Andy's here today. One of the first times I met Andy, I learned Andy's a nurse. And I think they describe the feeling like finding the vein and knowing that you're in the flow. I've also been poked a lot of times this summer because of the surgeries. And so I really appreciate it when the nurses find the vein. Like there's Andy used it to describe when they're in a band and playing with music, and like you find the flow with each other, and you know you're in the. Is that the words you used? Yeah. When you know you're clicking together and making the music. That's the same thing that I kept on sort of searching for in the artist's way, is like knowing that even when I write sermons sometimes, like you just start and then you go and get lost in it and do the thing, and there's not a time to be interrupted, or when you're in the flow. That's what I was searching for, and it took a long, long time to get there. I think prayer is like that too, for those of you who engage in prayer. If you think, I think it can oftentimes feel like you're just talking to yourself for a really long time. And then if you keep on doing it, every once in a while, you realize you're not alone in it, and that there's a sacred and holy presence of God, or what is sacred, that is there with you in it. And the thing is that the more you do it, the more often that happens, because you're in the flow. That's what we're talking about. We're using darkness here as a metaphor for the mystery of the time before you find yourself in the flow. And I hope you've picked up on this. It isn't just about art. It's about your connection to God. It's about finding your sense of purpose in life. It's about finding the next place for you to go. It's about your connection with neighbors, or finding your people. It's about figuring out what you'll do next in this world if you feel like the thing you're doing now is no longer serving you or the world. It's about, for me right now, it's about doing all of the physical therapy every single day, and then one morning waking up and stretching. You know, when you do that stretch and your whole body, like every muscle stretches, and I kept on telling my physical therapist, like, I keep thinking it'll just move into place because like, and then one day, I'm not saying I'm all better, but there was a day when I was stretching like that and it hit its lock, and then it moved beyond. I was like, okay, there might be a few more degrees here. That happened on Friday night. And then the next morning I could walk down the stairs. Like, not normally, but not bad leg with crutch, you know, the way that you're taught on the day after surgery. So, I know. Whew. I'm still in this place that's supposed to look like this, and so it's not all going to be great, but that felt like a good next move. All of a sudden, I'd crossed a threshold. As I said earlier, Michelle's been with us for this year as one of our pastors. It's been an interim call. An interim means it was always intended to be for this period of time. It was from September to September. She actually was with us before that, too. She came on and started in a time when we had some staff changes, and I was left alone, and so she stepped in very quickly and filled some important gaps to make space for me to be able to do other stuff. And while we brought Andy on, and while Andy was in school last year, by the way, I'm just going to take the time to say, like, Andy's classwork is done, and the last thing that he needs to do to get his to be ordained in Word and Service is an internship, which he is starting like right now here with us. And so he's full-time now, and some of his hours will be learning hours where we're figuring out what else he needs to be learning in order to finish out that degree. I mean, you never finish learning how to be a minister, but we'll put some intentional learning in place this year for that. Back to Michelle, it's been an amazing gift to have her here as a pastor, caring for people and tending to those details to make that space for us. And Michelle doesn't quite know what comes next either, where God will call her and where her gifts will best be able to be used. I have been through times like that in my life. I don't think Michelle is in this place, but I can absolutely remember times when I was like living in my parents' basement at like 30, and I remember waking up and looking in the mirror and thinking, surely you can come up with something to do with this life, God. And it just felt like a very hopeless time. I don't know if you've been through times like that. I hope you haven't. But if you have, that's the darkness. And out of that comes something. There was a time in high school when I can remember crying into a frying pan because I was so afraid I wasn't going to be smart enough to make it through college. And then years later, when I chose to go to seminary, a week and a half into seminary, I did very badly on my first 2 assignments. And I was very sure that I wasn't going to make it through seminary at all. Which is kind of funny now that I think about it, because is Spidey still here? Yeah, she's in the back. Bear always, in the first few years that I was here, was always asking if I was going to become a professor. I think because my sermons are sometimes a little too academic or something. And I just thought it was so funny, since I didn't even ever think I was going to make it through seminary at all. But way leads into way, and one day you find yourself in a different place. And a good place. There's a great Indigo Girls song about that. We should do that sometime. It's the will of the way, the will of the way, the will and the only way that could have got me here today. And it's all right. Even in the process of the Artist's Way and sabbatical, I can remember this day about 3 weeks in when I got a little panicky, thinking I was writing all the things that I'd seen the day before, which is nice. But there was no poem, no story, no page I would ever read again necessarily, unless I was looking for ideas about traveling in Ireland. I could feel that I wasn't in that creative flow that I was talking about, and that I know exists, because I've been there before. And my whole purpose for this time away was to see if I could still write anything besides a sermon, if I could still call myself a writer. There's this time in the beginning of the Artist's Way when there are these affirmations you're supposed to say to yourself. I'm not very good at those. And one of them has you filling in the blanks that would say something like, in my case, I, Holly, am a brilliant and prolific writer. And it was so hard for me to say, because it had been so long since I had written a poem, which is what I used to write so much. And it took me a few weeks to realize that if I just counted sermons as writing as well, I can at least then say, I, Holly, am a prolific and occasionally brilliant writer and preacher. And then one day I slowed down. I was staying on an alpaca farm for 2 nights outside of Galway, Ireland, and I didn't do anything touristy for a whole day except visiting the goats and the sheep and the alpacas on the farm. And I just rested and I wrote. And some brilliant and prolific ideas came out of that day. Some ideas about what will come next for me in my life beyond my time here. I still feel called to be here, don't worry. Just some new thoughts about that. In fact, I'm just going to start some of them while I'm here to practice some things, and they all have to do with writing, so I hope you're all ready to write with me. And I did write a poem that day. It's simple. I'll share it with you now. It's called A Blessing for Today. Here it is, a blessing. Here, wherever you find yourself today. This ground beneath your feet, this sky with its clouds or sun or rain or snow, this stillness, this breeze, this moment together or alone, this grief, this joy, this list of things to do here. Other days may be similar, but none exactly like this one. Here it is, with all its gifts and challenges. Have the best day available to you. In those times that feel like darkness, like nothing's happening, like you can't get in the flow, like you're just writing pages of grocery lists, like you haven't made the connections that you need to make, and there's work just know that there is work that is being done in the dark. As long as you can quit scrolling, turn off Netflix, engage in activities that make space for some new thing to come, there are seeds that you have sown. There are roots that are reaching out to other roots that we have never even seen that are connecting all the things. And this is all over the Bible. That's why we read that book today. When Andy and I were talking about what Bible story to use, we couldn't come up with one because there's just too many. In the beginning, darkness covered the face of the deep, and God created everything from that. Samuel was called as he lays in bed at night, and Jacob wrestled with the angel all night long to receive that blessing. Abraham was told to go out and look up at the stars. Your people are going to be like the stars in number. And then literally they waited decades for that first child to be born. The Israelites living in the diaspora or living as a remnant in a desecrated land after their temple and land was destroyed and occupied, and they were displaced human beings, being told by God, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans for a good and hopeful future." Mary, Joseph, Magi, shepherds were visited by angels in the dark and told what their holy calling would be in ushering in and welcoming the Christ child. The whole world going dark as Jesus died. And then the tomb, 3 days later, we are told, was empty when the women came at daybreak. Something happened in the dark. These are the beautiful works of God's holy darkness. So when you find yourself there, trust the darkness. Amen.